My mother once told me that diamonds are worthless until someone decides they're not. I didn't understand what she meant until the day she said it in a jewelry store, standing right next to me, as if I were invisible. The fluorescent lights of Vanguard gems reflected off every surface, turning the Upper East Side boutique into a cathedral of wealth. I stood before the engagement ring display, not because I was getting married, but because I had designed 3 of the pieces behind that glass. My fingers traced the air above the case, remembering every curve I had sketched in my cramped Brooklyn apartment. Every sleepless night spent perfecting the clasp mechanism that made the center stone appear to float. Don't waste their time with these extravagant things. My mother's voice cut through the hushed atmosphere like a knife through silk. You can't even afford the box they come in. I know my daughter. Eleanor Jenkins had perfected the art of public humiliation over 28 years of motherhood. Her eyes swept over me with the same dismissive glance she had given my sketchbooks, my college acceptance letters, my first gallery showing. I was wearing my favorite vintage dress, the one I had found at a thrift store in Williamsburg and altered myself. To her, it might as well have been rags. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the one that had accompanied me through childhood dinner tables where my sister Emma's achievements were celebrated, while mine were footnotes. The one that squeezed harder every Christmas when my designs were called cute hobbies, while Emma's corporate presentations were real accomplishments. My mother turned to the sales associate, a young woman named Sophie, who I had worked with on the installation just 3 days ago. Just show me the new collection, dear. My daughter is only here to look. The condescension dripped from every word. I watched Sophie's eyes flicker between us, recognizing me, but clearly confused by the dynamic. This was the moment I had been preparing for without knowing it. Every dismissed dream, every casual cruelty, every time I had swallowed my words to keep the peace had led me here. Actually, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I'm here to pick up a special order. My mother's laugh was sharp and performative. A special order? Sarah, please, stop embarrassing yourself. Before I could respond, Mr. Harrison emerged from the back office. He was the director of Vanguard Gems, a distinguished man in his 60s, who had discovered my work at a small art show in Chelsea 2 years ago. His face lit up when he saw me. Miss Jenkins, we've been expecting you. Your custom diamond collection from Paris arrived this morning. Please, come to the private viewing room. The silence that followed was delicious. I watched my mother's expression shift from smug certainty to confusion, then to something darker. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the tightening around her eyes. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake, she said, her voice rising slightly. My daughter is just an artist, a struggling one. Mr. Harrison's smile didn't waver, but his tone became formal. There's no mistake, Mrs. Jenkins. Your daughter is one of our most valued clients. Her designs are exclusive to the Eclat du Soir collection by Laurent. The pieces have been pre-sold to clients in Monaco, Dubai, and Singapore. I felt the attention shift in the store. Other customers paused their browsing. Sales associates exchanged glances. My mother's face flushed, a deep red creeping up her neck. For once in her life, Eleanor Jenkins was not in control of the narrative. I followed Mr. Harrison toward the private rooms, my legs somehow steady, despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Behind me, I heard my mother's heels clicking rapidly on the marble floor as she followed, uninvited. The private viewing room was everything I had imagined when I first sketched these designs in my notebook during my lunch breaks at the Rusty Spoon, the diner in Brooklyn where I had worked double shifts for 2 years to afford materials. The pieces were displayed on black velvet, each one catching the light in exactly the way I had calculated. The teardrop pendant that had taken me 6 months to perfect. The cuff bracelet, with the hidden clasp, that had cost me 3 months of rent to prototype. The ring with the floating diamond that Mr. Harrison had requested specifically after seeing my portfolio. Each piece bore my signature, a delicate S.J., engraved in a place only the wearer would see, a secret between me and the woman who would wear my work. My mother pushed into the room behind me, and I heard her sharp intake of breath. Her eyes moved over the collection, calculating, and I knew she was adding up the zeros. For Eleanor Jenkins, value had always been measured in dollar signs and social status. "I don't understand," she said, and for the first time in my life, she actually sounded uncertain. How did you? "Every night you told me to stop wasting time on sketches," I said quietly. "Every time you said I needed to focus on finding a rich husband instead of chasing fantasies. Every time you introduced me as your daughter who dabbled in art." Mr. Harrison excused himself diplomatically, leaving us alone with $10 million worth of jewelry that had emerged from my supposedly worthless imagination. My mother reached out as if to touch the teardrop pendant, then withdrew her hand. "I didn't know it was this serious." "You didn't want to know." The words came easier now. "When I told you Lauren wanted to meet with me, you said they were probably looking for a secretary. When I said I had sold my first design, you asked if it was to a pawn shop. I was trying to protect you from disappointment." Her voice had taken on the martyred tone she used when she wanted to be seen as the victim. "The art world is cruel. I didn't want you to get hurt." "No, Mom. You were protecting yourself from the embarrassment of having a daughter who didn't fit your image of success." I picked up the teardrop pendant, feeling its weight in my palm. This piece had been inspired by a night I had cried myself to sleep after my mother told her bridge club friends that I was still trying to find myself, while Emma was already a vice president at 30. "I'm taking these pieces now," I said. "Thank you for coming, but I have a meeting with Vogue in an hour about the Paris show." Her face transformed again, this time into something calculating. "Paris? You're going to Paris?" "I've been working with Lauren's Paris headquarters for 6 months. The collection launches at their annual gala in 8 weeks. I walked past her, carrying the velvet case with my designs. Mr. Harrison was waiting by the door with the paperwork and additional security for the pieces. As I signed the insurance documents, I felt my mother's presence behind me, hovering, trying to find a foothold in this new reality where I wasn't the family disappointment. Outside, the Manhattan air hit me like a wake-up call. The city stretched before me, full of people who had no idea who Eleanor Jenkins was or what she thought of me. For the first time in my 28 years, I felt the possibility of existing outside of her shadow. "Sarah, wait." I turned to find her standing on the sidewalk, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. For a moment, she looked smaller than I remembered. But then her face hardened into the expression I knew so well. "This little show you put on in there, what was it supposed to prove? That you can make me look foolish in public?" "It wasn't a show, Mom. This is my career." She laughed, but it was bitter and sharp. "Career? Those overpriced trinkets? You expect me to believe you created those?" Something inside me snapped. Not dramatically, but quietly, like a thread that had been pulled too tight for too long. "Yes. Every single one. Every sketch that you called a waste of time. Every night I didn't sleep because I was working on prototypes while you were telling your friends I was unemployed. Every day I worked 2 shifts at the Rusty Spoon to buy materials while you asked me when I was going to get a real job. I wanted you to have security, stability." "No." The word burst out louder than I intended. A few pedestrians glanced our way, but I didn't care anymore. "You wanted me to live your version of stability. Marry someone wealthy, smile at parties, give up everything that made me myself. You never cared about what actually made me happy." "That's not fair. I'm your mother. Everything I did was for your own good." "Stop. Just stop." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the jewelry case in my hands. These pieces represented 3 years of work, of sacrifice, of believing in myself when nobody else did. You know what's funny? The night I got the call from Lauren, the night that changed my life, I called you first. "Do you remember what you said?" She didn't answer. "You said I was delusional. You said they were probably scamming me. You said I should focus on updating my resume instead." That was the night I realized you would never see me as anything but a disappointment. That's not true. I was trying to be realistic. No. You were trying to keep me small, because my dreams made you uncomfortable. Because if I succeeded at something you didn't understand, something you didn't approve of, it meant you might have been wrong about me. And Eleanor Jenkins is never wrong. I watched her face cycle through emotions, surprise, anger, something that might have been hurt, before settling on defensive indignation. I don't have to stand here and be attacked by my own daughter. You're right, you don't. I adjusted the case in my arms. I have to go. Unlike what you believe, I actually do have a career to manage. I started walking toward the town car that Mr. Harrison had arranged. My mother called after me, but I didn't turn around. For the first time in my life, I kept walking. The next 8 weeks passed in a blur of international calls, design revisions, and preparation for the Paris launch. My apartment in Brooklyn, once a source of shame when my mother visited and commented on its size, became my sanctuary. The exposed brick walls were covered with sketches, mood boards, and photographs of the pieces in various stages of completion. Emma called twice, both times to tell me that Mom was very upset and that I should apologize. The first time, I tried to explain. The second time, I hung up. My sister had always been the golden child, and she couldn't understand what it meant to be the tarnished one. 3 days before I was supposed to fly to Paris, my assistant Mia burst into my studio with her laptop. "Sarah, you need to see this." She turned the screen to show me an email from the Paris team. My mother had RSVP'd to the gala, claiming to be my manager and representative. The email was CC'd to half a dozen people at Laurent, written in her formal, commanding tone that had intimidated me my entire life. "What do you want to do?" Mia asked, watching my face carefully. I read the email again, noting the way my mother had positioned herself as the driving force behind my success, the supportive parent who had always believed in my talent. The revisionist history was breathtaking in its audacity. "Let her come," I said finally. "She should see what she tried so hard to destroy." Mia looked skeptical. "Are you sure? This is your night. You don't need her drama." "I know, but maybe she needs to see it. Maybe I need her to see it." The flight to Paris was my first time in first class. Laurent had insisted on it, but I still felt like an imposter, surrounded by business executives and celebrities. I sketched in my notebook, trying to calm my nerves, and fell asleep somewhere over the Atlantic, dreaming of my mother's face in the jewelry store. Paris was everything I had imagined and nothing I had prepared for. The Laurent headquarters occupied a restored 18th century building near the Place Vendôme, all soaring ceilings and gilded mirrors. The team greeted me like I was already famous, which was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The night before the gala, I stood in my hotel room at the Ritz, looking out at the Eiffel Tower. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Your mother just checked into the Georges V. She's telling people she's here to support her daughter's Paris debut." I typed back, "Of course she is." The gala was held in a private mansion in the 8th arrondissement, the kind of place that usually only appeared in movies about old money and older secrets. Guests arrived in cars that cost more than my entire education. I wore a custom gown designed by one of Laurent's fashion partners, a deep emerald that made me feel like someone else entirely. Someone confident. Someone who belonged here. I was standing near the display of my collection, watching people examine each piece with reverent attention, when I heard her voice. "Sarah! Darling, you look absolutely stunning." My mother swept toward me in a gown that probably cost more than a month of her country club dues. Her smile was brilliant and completely fake, the one she wore for cameras and important people. She air-kissed both my cheeks, performing affection for the audience around us. "Mom." I kept my voice neutral. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come." "Of course I came. You're my daughter. The press is calling you the new star of luxury design. I always knew you had talent." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost admired it. Almost. "Funny. You used to say my designs would end up at a flea market." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes hardened. "I was wrong. People make mistakes. Tonight isn't the time to hold grudges. Everyone here thinks we're a close family. Let's not disappoint them. Let's not disappoint them, I repeated softly. That's always been your priority, hasn't it? What other people think. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed and the program director stepped to the microphone. The speeches began, a series of fashion industry luminaries talking about innovation and artistry. I barely heard them. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone must be able to hear it. Then they called my name. The spotlight found me and I walked to the small stage they had set up near the main display. Hundreds of faces turned toward me. Camera flashes erupted like stars. I gripped the microphone, feeling its cool metal against my palm, and took a breath. Thank you all for being here tonight. This collection, Lumiere by Sarah Jenkins, represents 3 years of work. But more than that, it represents something I think a lot of people can understand. The pieces are dedicated to everyone who has ever been told they're not good enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. I paused, my eyes finding my mother in the crowd. She was standing near the back, her face illuminated by the soft gallery lighting. For a moment, our eyes met. Sometimes the people closest to us can't see our light, not because it isn't there, but because they're not looking for it. They're looking for something else, something that fits their expectations. And when we don't meet those expectations, they decide we're the problem. The room was silent, except for the soft whir of cameras. I could feel the tension, the way the audience leaned forward, sensing something raw and real. This collection is for everyone who kept creating anyway, who kept believing in themselves when nobody else did, who worked double shifts and sacrificed sleep, and ignored the people who said their dreams were impractical. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger or bitterness. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. The applause started slowly, then built into something thunderous. People were standing. Someone near the front was crying. But I was only watching my mother, watching her face cycle through shock, anger, humiliation, and something I couldn't quite name. After the speech, I was surrounded by press and buyers and industry people who wanted to shake my hand and tell me how moved they were. Through the crowd, I could see my mother standing alone near the bar, gripping a champagne flute like it was the only solid thing in the room. It took me an hour to extract myself from the well-wishers. By the time I reached her, she looked like she had aged a decade. That was quite a speech, she said, her voice flat. It was honest. You humiliated me. In front of all these people, you made me sound like a monster. I never said your name. If you felt targeted, maybe that's something you should think about. She set down her glass with trembling hands. For the first time in my memory, Eleanor Jenkins looked truly lost. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix us. Maybe we can't be fixed. Maybe we were never meant to fit together the way you wanted. I'm your mother. I know. But being a mother isn't just about biology. It's about seeing your child for who they actually are, not who you want them to be. And you never saw me, Mom. You saw a version of me that fit your narrative. When I didn't match that version, you tried to reshape me instead of accepting me. A tear ran down her cheek, smearing her mascara. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From being happy? From succeeding on my own terms? The only thing you protected me from was having a mother who believed in me. The words hung between us, brutal and true. I waited for her to argue, to defend herself, to turn this back on me the way she always did. Instead, she just stood there, looking smaller and more fragile than I had ever seen her. I was wrong, she whispered, finally. About your art, about your choices, about you. Yes, you were. Can you forgive me? I looked at this woman who had shaped so much of my pain and my strength. I don't know yet, but I know I can't keep sacrificing my peace to maintain your comfort. I'm done making myself smaller so you feel bigger. What does that mean? It means that if you want to be part of my life, you have to accept all of it. My career, my choices, my boundaries. I won't be your project to fix or your disappointment to hide anymore. I'm successful now, but that's not why I deserve respect. I deserved it all along, even when I was struggling. She nodded slowly, like she was processing a foreign language. I don't know if I can change. That's something you have to figure out. But I'm not waiting around while you decide. I've spent too many years waiting for your approval. I left her there and rejoined the party. For the next 2 hours, I networked, celebrated, and let myself feel the full weight of my achievement. When I finally returned to my hotel room at 3 a.m, exhausted and exhilarated, I found a note that had been slipped under my door. The handwriting was my mother's, shaky and uncertain. I watched you tonight. Truly watched you. Maybe for the first time. You were radiant. I'm sorry it took the whole world recognizing your talent before I could see it. That's my failure, not yours. I love you. Always have, even when I didn't show it right. I set the note on the nightstand and looked out at Paris, the city of lights living up to its name. The note didn't fix anything. Words on paper couldn't undo 28 years of criticism and dismissal. But it was something. A crack in the armor, maybe. 2 months later, I returned to New York to find my life transformed. Vogue had run a 6-page spread on the collection. Orders were coming in faster than I could fulfill them. Laurent wanted to extend my contract for 3 more years. I hired 2 junior designers and moved into a proper studio space in Manhattan. Emma called to congratulate me, her voice stiff with what might have been jealousy or might have been guilt. Mom talks about you constantly now, shows everyone your Vogue spread. It's like she's forgotten everything she said before. Of course she has. Now I'm successful in a way she understands. That makes me acceptable. That's harsh, Sarah. It's true, and I'm done pretending otherwise. My mother sent flowers to my new studio. Expensive arrangements that arrived weekly with notes about how proud she was. I never responded. 6 weeks after Paris, she called and asked to meet for coffee. We met at a cafe in Greenwich Village, neutral territory where neither of us had history. She looked older, more careful, like she was navigating a minefield. Your studio is beautiful, she said. I saw pictures online. Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about what you said in Paris, about not seeing you. And you were right. I had this idea of who you should be, and when you didn't match it, I blamed you instead of examining my expectations. That was cruel and unfair. I sipped my coffee, waiting. Words were easy. My mother had always been good with words. I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I'm trying to understand. I've started therapy. First time in my life. That surprised me. Eleanor Jenkins didn't believe in therapy. She believed in appearances and control. That's good, I said carefully. I hope it helps you. I'm also working on accepting that our relationship might never be what I thought it would be. That's hard for me. Admitting that I damaged something I can't repair. Some things can't be repaired. They can only be acknowledged. She nodded, her hands wrapped around her own coffee cup. Can I ask you something? When did you stop needing my approval? I thought about it, tracing the journey back through all those moments of small rebellion that led to this. I think it was gradual. Every time you dismissed something I cared about, a little piece of me learned to stop sharing. Eventually, I realized I was living 2 lives, the one you saw and the one I actually lived. And the one I actually lived was so much richer. I missed out on knowing the real you. Yes, you did. We sat in silence for a while. 2 women who shared blood, but not understanding. Finally, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. I bought this before Paris, before I knew what your work really looked like. I was going to give it to you as a way of saying I supported you even though I didn't really. Then I saw the collection. And I realized how insulting this would be. She pushed the box across the table. Inside was a mass-produced pendant, the kind sold at department stores. Pretty enough, but generic and soulless. This is what I thought your work was. Simple, predictable, worth about $50. I was going to give this to you like it was generous, Like I was being supportive. She laughed bitterly. I don't even know who I was trying to fool. You or myself? Probably both. After Paris, I went back to that jewelry store where I humiliated you. I asked Mr. Harrison about your work. He spent an hour telling me about your design process, your attention to detail, the way you incorporate mathematics into aesthetics. He showed me emails from clients around the world, and I realized I never asked you about any of it. Not once did I ask how you created something or what inspired you. I just dismissed it, without looking. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I see it now. I see you, and I'm so sorry it took public validation for me to pay attention. You deserved better from me. You always did. I looked at this woman who had caused me so much pain, who was now sitting across from me with tears in her eyes, finally saying the things I had needed to hear for decades. Part of me wanted to accept it, to let the healing begin. But another part remembered every dismissive comment, every casual cruelty, every time I had needed her to believe in me and she hadn't. I appreciate you saying that, I said finally. But I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was before Paris. I'm not waiting for your approval anymore. I don't need you to see my worth because I finally see it myself. And that means our relationship, if we have one, has to be completely different. I understand. Do you? Because it means I set the boundaries now. It means you don't get to comment on my life choices, or give unsolicited advice, or introduce me to people as anything other than exactly who I am. It means you respect my work, even when you don't understand it. And it means that if you revert to your old patterns, I will walk away without guilt. She nodded, but I could see the difficulty in accepting it. Eleanor Jenkins had spent a lifetime being in control, being the authority. Surrendering that was foreign territory. I can try, she said. That's all I can promise. Then that's where we start. We finished our coffee and parted with an awkward hug. I walked back to my studio feeling neither healed nor bitter, just realistic. Maybe we would rebuild something eventually. Maybe we wouldn't. But for the first time, my life didn't depend on her acceptance. A year passed. The Lumiere collection sold out completely. I designed 2 more lines, each more ambitious than the last. My work appeared in museums and on celebrities at award shows. I hired 5 more people and moved to an even larger studio space. My mother and I spoke occasionally, careful conversations, where we stayed on safe topics. She came to my holiday show and didn't make a single critical comment. She sent me a birthday card with a simple message. Proud of you. Love, Mom. No qualifications, no backhanded compliments. Just those 4 words. It wasn't the relationship I had dreamed of as a child, but it was honest, which was something we had never been before. One evening, I was alone in my studio, working on a new design inspired by light refracting through ice. My phone rang. It was Emma. Mom's in the hospital, she said without preamble. Minor heart attack. She's stable, but they want to keep her for observation. I felt my chest tighten with old, complicated emotions. Is she okay? Yes, but she's asking for you. I found her in a private room at Mount Sinai, looking pale but alert. Emma was sitting in the corner texting someone, and barely looked up when I entered. Sarah. My mother's voice was weak but clear. You came. Of course I came. I wasn't sure you would. I sat in the chair next to her bed, studying her face. Without makeup, without armor, she looked vulnerable and human. How are you feeling? Like an old fool who ignored chest pains for 3 days because she was too stubborn to admit something was wrong. She smiled weakly. Apparently, stubbornness runs in the family. Apparently. She reached for my hand, and after a moment, I let her take it. I've been thinking about what you said at the cafe, about seeing yourself clearly now. I want that too, to see myself clearly. It's terrifying, but I want it. That's good, Mom. I wasted so much time, Sarah. So much time trying to control things that weren't mine to control. Trying to shape you into something you were never meant to be. And I almost lost you completely because of it. But you didn't. Only because you were strong enough to save yourself. Not because I came to my senses. She squeezed my hand weakly. Promise me something. Promise you'll keep being that strong. Keep setting those boundaries. Don't let me or anyone else make you small again. I promise. And one more thing. When they discharge me, will you show me your studio? Really show me? Explain everything? I want to understand your world. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of it. Okay. Yes. I'd like that. Emma left to get coffee, and I sat with my mother in the fluorescent hospital light, both of us quiet. Through the window, I could see the Manhattan skyline. All those buildings full of people with their own complicated relationships and hard-won victories. I'm sorry, my mother said softly. I know I've said it before, but I need to keep saying it. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel less than you were. I know. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me? Maybe it's just learning to move forward without the past controlling us. She nodded, closing her eyes. That sounds wise. When did you get so wise? Around the time I stopped waiting for you to tell me I was. 3 weeks later, she came to my studio. I showed her everything. The design process, the prototypes, the failures that led to successes. She asked questions and listened to the answers. She even laughed when I told her about the early days working at the Rusty Spoon and sketching on napkins during slow shifts. I wish I had seen this before, she said, holding one of my newer pieces up to the light. I wish I had been curious instead of judgmental. You see it now. That's something. As she was leaving, she turned back at the door. You know what I realized? That day at Vanguard Gems, when you said you were picking up a special order, I thought you were lying to make yourself look good. It never occurred to me that you might actually be successful. That says more about me than it ever did about you. Yes, it does. Thank you for not giving up on me entirely. Thank you for finally trying. After she left, I stood in my studio surrounded by years of work, proof of my persistence and vision. My phone buzzed with another commission request, this one from a royal family in Europe. I sketched out some initial ideas, losing myself in the creative process that had saved me. That night, I designed a new piece, a pendant featuring a diamond suspended in a spiral of white gold. I called it Emergence. It represented breaking free, finding light, becoming. I would keep this one for myself, a reminder of everything I had overcome to get here. Sometimes at night, I still thought about that day in the jewelry store, the moment I decided to stop being invisible. It had started something irreversible, a chain reaction that changed everything. My mother would never be perfect. Our relationship would never be simple. But I had learned something more valuable than her approval. I had learned that my worth wasn't determined by who could see it, that my light didn't shine brighter because it was finally acknowledged. It had been there all along, burning steadily in the darkness, waiting for me to recognize it myself. And I did. Finally. Completely. I did.